Before I start this video, I should say, no, the title is not clickbait. I indeed managed to go on a holiday for $100. Well, that's what it rounded to. And I know what you're probably thinking. Aren't you British? Yes, I am. But if converting pounds to dollars, it's $100. So at this time, like when I paid the cost, it was about £80, and at the time it was like zero point 0.8, I think. It was about 0.8 80p to the dollar. And you're probably wondering how. So I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory as to how it happened and some tips that you could probably take away when you're traveling. So in April, I decided that I wanted to go and climb some, like, go on a hike or climb mountains because I wanted to see some nice views. It just made me. I was just in the mood to go, and like I just really wanted to go. So I basically hit up my friend, and I was like, "Yo, do you want to like meet up and like go hike a mountain and stuff?" And he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." But he was working until May, and essentially he got off work and then he had to go to. He already went. He made like these plans to go to Croatia with his friends and then go to a music festival afterwards. So he was like, "When I get back, we need to find a date after a little bit after I get back." So I was like, okay. So we picked the end of July basically. So July 26th to the 31st, we basically went on holiday. Where did we go to? We went to Scotland. Why did we go to Scotland? We went to Glencoe because they had really nice mountains with great views, and it just seemed really nice. I personally was more into. I personally leaned towards like Preikestolen in Norway, but he told me to have a look at Glencoe, and then I was like, okay, you know what? I don't mind. This looks pretty good, and it looks like it'll be a decent hike. So we made the arrangements. He's from Germany. I'm from England, obviously. So here's how I did it. So spent a bit. He spent more than $100 because he had to spend more money for his flight, and yeah, so and his other stuff. So he spent more money than I did. I was fortunate to not have to spend as much for traveling to Scotland. So I looked at the prices of buses, trains, and flights, and flights turned out to be the most feasible. Flights turned out to be, well, the cheapest. So I decided to go by flight. So initially I booked it with Ryanair, and that was about 50. It was about 50 quid, £50 something pence, and that was a return journey. And essentially, what happened is a little bit after, just a couple weeks before we actually had to go, about 2-3 weeks before we had to go, they cancelled the flight. So that was great. So now I had to rebook it, and I booked it with Flybe this time for the same dates. Slightly different. They made slight adjustments to the time, but it wasn't crazy. It was probably like 50 minutes, half an hour to 50 minutes, like the adjustments. So I was like, oh, I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly fine with doing that. So essentially, my flight cost 50 quid, and then accommodation for the first night was in Edinburgh. We stayed. So basically, our trip was meet up in Edinburgh, at Edinburgh Airport, and then go to an Airbnb. The following day, go to Glencoe, then spend a few days there hiking, whatnot, and then going back to Edinburgh, and then we go back home. That was the trip basically. So we were in Edinburgh. The Airbnb was about 15 quid, and then essentially we got to Glencoe afterwards, which was quite long. I should probably make a disclaimer that this cost does not include bus journeys, food, or any other miscellaneous items. Mainly just because I do not have a track. I do not have a track of that basically. So, long story short, we got to Edinburgh and the Airbnb was about 15 quid. So £15 each, I should say. It was £30 roughly. So we split it between the both of us, and we stayed over there. Then essentially afterwards we took the bus to Glencoe. We obviously went to Tesco first to get food, and I do not remember the bill. It might have been about, I think between both of us we probably spent about 30 quid or so, but I covered the bill on that because he covered the accommodation for the rest of the journey, basically. So for the Glencoe hostel, he basically covered me for that. So I thought it's only fair for me to pay for the groceries and stuff. So again, I'm not counting the grocery cost. So in terms of my spending, really so far at this point, it's £50 for the return flights and £15 for the Airbnb. Food costs I'm not counting, like I said, and I'm not counting the bus journey as well. So we took the bus and it went it went through Glasgow and then to Glencoe, and then we had to walk quite a bit actually. Little sidetrack. I'm gonna go sidetrack a little bit here, but we basically had to carry our luggage and our groceries, which were quite heavy, and it was pouring with rain. Like it was so heavy rain, and we were just walking. We just had to keep walking for like about 45 minutes. It was hell. So we got to the accommodation, and then we basically went on the hikes to a few mountains. If you've never been to Glencoe, I highly advise it. We stayed at the independent hostel, so it's alright. It's basically just like got beds, shower, your basic essentials, and it's like you have to cook for yourself and stuff. So that's why we had to get the groceries and stuff. And the reason why I recommend it is just because it's the closest to the mountains, really, as far as I'm aware, at least. So yeah, we went under the mountains, took some really good shots, and then here's where things get interesting. We were going to go to this place called the Devil's Staircase, and essentially, here's the thing that's a bit weird. Now, in England, you normally never see hitchhikers ever. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a hitchhiker. I've never hitchhiked myself. But in Scotland, it's actually kind of a normal-ish. It's not like a regular occurrence that you're going to see every hitchhiker down the street or anything, but it's a socially acceptable thing. And I didn't know that. I thought, yeah, it doesn't work like that here. In America, yeah, sure, maybe even some European countries, but it probably will not happen in the United Kingdom. I was wrong. My friend basically encouraged us. He was like, "Let's get a hitchhike." And I was like, "It's not gonna work, but fine, we'll try it." And we actually did. So last minute, we basically bailed out of going to the Devil's Staircase, and we basically decided last minute to go to the Isle of Skye, and we only decided to do that because pretty much like quite a lot of people we were staying with in the hostel, they were like, yeah, Isle of Skye is beautiful. They just like some of them came from there, some of them were gonna go there, some of them and they've been there before. So yeah, and then Google Images just made it look really good. Only issue is from Glencoe, it's a 3.5 hour to 4 hour car journey. Yeah. So, long story short, we hitchhiked for about 20 minutes, and we actually found someone that was willing to take us that far. And yeah, that was crazy. So we didn't actually have to pay for anything in terms of journey costs there. So, it was insane. Then, essentially on the way back, we kind of got stranded. But I'm gonna make a separate video on that. I feel that's just a very interesting story. So we were kind of stranded in the middle of nowhere, and we managed to get our way back to Glencoe in time to get a bus back to Edinburgh. And yeah, that's basically it, really. So my only really real overheads in terms of accommodation, transportation, were flights 50 quid, and then the accommodation for the night at Edinburgh, which was another 15. Oh, and then the other accommodation we stayed at in Edinburgh again for the night was also 15 as well. So looking at 80 quid basically. This was just flights and accommodation. I did not include the bills. I did not include the cost for food, miscellaneous, or bus tickets because I simply don't remember them. Quite honestly, I could probably find a receipt somewhere, but I don't know. But that's essentially how we managed to do it. Obviously, the only reason I didn't include those costs is because it would vary from person to person about what they would actually spend, and I was actually very fortunate. This holiday would have cost a lot more, but my friend was very generous enough to pay for the hostel, like I said. So it saved me about 25, 30 quid probably. So yeah, that's effectively how we managed to. That's effectively how I managed to get a holiday for 5 days for $100. This was just a crazy cool holiday overall. Um, Very intense holiday, I'll say, towards the end when we got stranded um, in the middle of King Nowhere. That was intense, and I think I'll make a story time video about that later on. If you guys want that, then just leave a comment saying that you want to see that. And yeah, effectively that's effectively how I managed to travel for £80 or 100 US dollars. So yeah. So if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a comment down below to give me some feedback as well. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and in the wise words of Graham Stephan, smash the like button. That was a terrible idea. Okay, peace.